Welcome to our first video for Unit 4. We're going to be talking about measures of center. These are some things that you know. Most of the time teachers call it the 3 M's, mean, median, and mode. Mean stands for the sum of the data divided by the number of items in the data set. So mean is a way that we find the center of data. We do it by adding up the numbers and dividing by how many numbers there are. So here's our data set. We're going to add them together. So just imagine 65 plus 52 plus 98 plus 40 plus 47 plus 59. The sum of those is 361. I have to take that sum, 361, and divide it by how many numbers I have. I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And when I divide by 6, I get 60. So the mean of this data set is 60. Okay, my next data set is a little bit different. This is a very typical problem when it talks about mean. It says if the mean is 77, what is the missing number? So we've got to think about kind of working backwards to find out what this mystery number is. Well, if I knew what that mystery number was, I'd do the same steps. I'd add them together, divide by how many there are, and it's telling me I'm going to get 77. So think about how you can solve that by doing some equation strategies. If I add 70 plus 71 plus 71, 71, 75 plus 77, 82, 83, another 83, I get a total of 683. So imagine if these are like test scores, that's how many points you have so far. Well, 683 plus some mystery number that I'm trying to figure out divided by how many scores I have, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, includes that mystery number, equals 77. So I've really got an equation here. Think about what we would do if we were trying to get this question mark by itself. The first thing I would need to do is get rid of this divided by 10. And the opposite of dividing by 10 is timesing by 10. If I do it to one side, I need to do it to the other side. So 683 plus some number equals 77 times 10, which is 770. One more step to get the question mark by itself. Subtract by 683 on both sides. And our mystery number is equal to 87. Okay, next measure of center is median. Median is the middle value of the data when the data is arranged in order from least to greatest. So catch yourself, you always have to put them in order from least to greatest first before you find the one in the middle. So in order from least to greatest for these values is 61, 68, 72, 75, 78, and 86. To find the one in the middle, a lot of times students like to do the cross off. So crossing off the numbers on either side until you reach the middle. Now you've got to stop. If you end up with 2 in the middle, you can't just choose one to be in the middle. You've got to find what's in the middle of those 2 numbers. So to find what's exactly in the middle between 72 and 75, I've got to find the mean of those 2 numbers, just like we talked about before. So I've got to add the 2 numbers together, 72 plus 75, and divide that by 2. So 72 plus 75 gives me 147 divided by 2 equals 73.5. Okay, last measure of center is mode. Mode is the number or numbers that occur most often. In green, very important concept, there can be one mode, more than one mode, or no mode. So I've got 3 different examples. Each of them has a different answer. Our first one has 2 modes. I see that 5 appears twice, and I also see that 2 appears twice. So that means that both 2 and 5 are the modes. In the second example, there is no number that repeats. So that means there is no mode. In the last example, I see that one number repeats, and that's the 6. So 6 is my mode. Okay, this is the last measure of center. These 3 measures of center, mean, median, and mode, tell us things about our data and what is a typical value. Okay, one more thing I want you to look at, guys, and that's a dot plot. A dot plot looks something like this, a number line with values. Sometimes they're X's, sometimes they're actual dots, but this is kind of what it typically looks like. Here's some more vocabulary for you that you're going to hear when they start describing these things. Remember, this is a distribution, and there's certain variability that we see in a distribution. So we may see a cluster of data. So you can see that we've got some data points that are kind of all together. And I would say that those data values make a cluster. I also see a gap between the cluster and this value out here at the 7. So another thing that you're going to need to be able to use for your vocabulary is gap, meaning there's space in between maybe clusters and this value. This value we would call an outlier. That can be kind of an easy word to remember, guys, because outliers lie outside of the rest of the data. Now, there's something that happens, guys, with outliers, and oftentimes they ask you questions about how outliers will affect the mean. Sometimes outliers do not affect the median or the mode, but outliers always affect our mean. So if I was to find the mean without this 7, let me tell you what it's going to give to you. So finding the mean, I'm going to add up 2, 2.5, 3.5, 3.5, 3.5, 3.5, 3, 3, 3, 3, and 4. And if I add up all those numbers together, I'm going to get 34.5 divided by how many values there are, and that's 11. And I'm going to get 3.136 with the 3 and the 6 repeating. Now the mean with the 7. The mean with the 7 is going to be a little bit different. It's going to be 41.5 divided by 12. And that equals 3.4583 repeating. Notice that the mean went up. That 7, because it's an outlier, is going to be bringing our mean up.